What's up, everybody? Jim and Eric here to talk this week on Keeping It Real about video game movies. Is 2016 the year that will make or break video game movies? We have several big ones coming up. We have Warcraft, Assassin's Creed, Angry Birds is right around the corner.
I should say unbreak them, right?
Yes, it's not like they've had a stellar run so far. But these are three major would-be blockbusters being released. You know, definitely, classy productions, a lot of money behind them, a lot of muscle behind them, marketing-wise. We haven't really seen that yet with video game movies, to have three like that getting such a big push. What do you think? Is this the year that will finally push? Okay, let me caveat that.
Yeah.
What do do you think this will be the year that one will see Hollywood finally embrace video games as an IP that they can really exploit going forward, as they have comic books? And if not, what are the big challenges? Eric Goldman, go.
Oh my gosh. First of all, it's hard for me not to put Angry Birds in sort of a different category, because it's this animated movie, and almost the fact that there is no real story to the game kind of makes it, they have the freedom to do whatever they want, right? It's almost like, just take these look of these characters, extrapolate from there. And I feel like there'll be an audience for that movie, however it's received, and it seems like there's some good reaction to it. So I think that one will sort of get a pass, but I still don't think it'll really be considered in the same way as a video game movie, because it's not the same type of movie. Warcraft and Assassin's Creed, yeah, like you said, I mean, they're definitely, they're going big with them, and really, good people involved, sort of prestigious people in some cases. So I would hope at least one of them hits. Warcraft is not doing it for me in those ads. It just, nothing about it looks really appealing to me, which is a shame. I like Duncan Jones quite a bit, but so far I'm wary. Assassin's Creed, that trailer, it's a cool looking trailer.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Well, here's the thing. You need all three of these to hit.
Yeah.
You can't have, if one of these bombs, then it kind of negates the whole. You need that hat trick, because you need the industry as a whole to look at this, see three video game movies in a row that made money.
Yeah.
Or at least captured sort of a public moment. If Warcraft tanks. And it's possible it could.
That's the one that
it's a very expensive movie.
I don't know about the appeal of that one either. I know World of Warcraft is a giantly successful, is that a word? It is now. Hugely successful game, but I don't know if the movie is going to have the crossover appeal that they're going for.
Well, there's none of the actors in there are necessarily, household names. I mean, Lord of the Rings, it kind of worked for that, but it also had more gravitas to it, and this one definitely feels a bit day late and a dollar short. And we've joked a lot that it feels like we have been hearing about this movie for like 20 years.
Yeah, it feels like the promotion for this movie has been going on for a long time.
Well, it's 3 Comic-Cons in a row.
Yeah,
and that's a long time.
Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long time. You truly outstay your welcome.
Yeah.
At least with the pop culture crowd, if your movie has still not come out in that time. Now, that being said, if this movie is a hit, let's say it's big in China or whatever, and that is the future.
Big in China is the new big in Japan.
Exactly. It really is. So Warcraft has to click, and Legendary obviously really wants it.
Sure.
The production company wants it to click overseas because they've got a huge investment in China. They've just recently been bought by a Chinese conglomerate.
That's too, yeah.
So it's definitely going to get a big push over there. Assassin's Creed, Michael Fassbender is a very talented and well-liked actor, but as we saw with Steve Jobs, when that movie tanked, I mean, a lot of the people said, well, he's not a movie star.
Right. He's not yet. No one is seeing a movie. No, I shouldn't say no one. Mass audiences are not seeing a movie yet because it's a Michael Fassbender movie.
Yeah.
I think people mostly know him as Magneto. I'm talking just people who like kind of recognize him but don't know who he is.
Well, he also is a producer in Assassin's Creed, so he has a lot riding on that.
Sure.
As does Ubisoft. I mean, this is their big movie out of the gate, and they want to do, they have their own movie studio basically on. They want to be Marvel of video game movies. Angry Birds obviously is, that's more of a Rovio thing than it is Sony, but I think they have a better shot at success because it's a kids movie, and it'll be in that sort of window after the juggernaut that's been Jungle Book kind of tapering off, and before Finding Dory.
Right.
So they have a legit shot at being that big kids movie at the, kind of a front-loaded thing though, because once Dory shows up, that fish is just going to gobble up everything.
Are you saying the fish is going to eat the bird?
I am. I'm saying the shoes on the other hand now. Now, we also should note, though, that Ratchet and Clank recently came out. However, let's face it, that's a smaller movie, another video game movie, but was that movie really even promoted anywhere? I mean, we knew about it just from doing this.
Yeah, like the promo push on Angry Birds, just anecdotally, the times I've seen the trailer for Angry Birds versus I never saw a trailer for Ratchet and Clank, just going to the movies. Angry Birds, and I see like promo stuff for it everywhere. Billboards, So
and it's going to move merch too, I mean, Ratchet and Clank, I'm curious why, maybe it was something in the voice cast contract, but look at the voice cast they had. They had Stallone and Rosario Dawson. I mean, if you could have gotten Stallone, even in like one of those behind the scenes EPK kind of style commercials of him in the booth doing a voice, that would have gotten somebody to go see that movie. But, alas, it didn't. I don't think that's going to make a dent on video game movies one way or another, though.
I don't think so either. I think it was seen as kind of a non-starter. So
that happened. It seems like it also pretty much puts the nail on the coffin of like a Sly Cooper movie, unless like Ratchet and Clank becomes this big home video phenomenon. But it didn't. The word of mouth on that wasn't. I mean, we gave it a mediocre, to negative review, and it's just kind of a here and gone kind of thing. What do you of these three big like major video game movies coming out this year? What is it that they have to accomplish, at least in sort of a marketing perspective, to connect with people?
I just think, again, I almost can't help but kind of put Angry Birds in a different category because that is sort of catering to a different audience, a different kind of movie. But with Warcraft and Assassin's Creed, I do think it is all about just selling an audience who does not care about those titles on this looks like a cool action movie. And that's where I came out of the first Assassin's Creed trailer going like, I think that's kind of cool looking. Even though it's like, if you don't know anything about it, it's confusing. Like what? He's modern day, but then he's this, his past life. But it's intriguing, whereas I don't think Warcraft just it feels like an echo of a thing we've seen too many times. You know? So I think if either of these movies is gonna be really big, it's gonna be about successfully getting just like a mainstream movie-going audience who just wants to see a cool action movie and doesn't care about the game to be like, okay, that looks cool.
Well, I mean, I think part of the problem that Warcraft has had is, they've shown a lot of the same footage over and over again, but it also has very canned dialogue. We will fight. We will stand together. Like, oh God, come on! I've heard these exact same lines in so many other lesser movies.
Said by similar characters.
It does have sort of a almost Avatar-like feel, which you would think that would be a plus considering it's the biggest movie of all time. But it actually seems like maybe it's actually kind of hurting the movie a bit.
It just I don't know, but even that it's just like. Because at the time, say what you will about Avatar, but it just looked visually like different. But this movie, just everything about Warcraft just seems like we've seen versions of this before, and there's nothing that's like that looks like it kicks ass.
Well, like, what do they have to do at this point? I mean, it opens up in weeks.
Right.
What do they have to do in the home stretch to get that general audience in?
I don't know. I'm pessimistic that they can, honestly. I don't know. I don't... Unless they've been really maybe they haven't, because it is obviously a hugely effects-driven movie. So if they've got some cooler, bigger sequences that they haven't really been able to show us much of, and they can show us something that truly makes you go, wow, that looks amazing. That looks like an action sequence that doesn't look like everything else. That might be the one thing they could maybe do. Maybe it's a more is more approach at this point.
Is it Is it the orcs? Is it that is it just something you can't connect with them? Does it just look like a gritty Shrek?
I don't know. I'll tell you, we saw that trailer, my wife and I, when we saw Civil War this past weekend, and I think she turned to me and said something like, they look, I can't remember if she said stupid or silly, but she was like, I think she said silly. They look silly just with the like sort of tusks and whatnot. I think it is hard to connect to that. I think, because it's not just the one character. I think you could better sell the like one funny Chewbacca-esque character, but when it's like half the cast,
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a big cast, too. There are a lot of characters, a lot of CGI characters. And then, that's just one element of it. You also have, the mages, so you have this sorcery stuff, then you have the... I think the Paula Patton character is the one that I'm kind of curious, like, is that going to work where she's like, she's like half human, half orc?
Yeah.
And you're like... I don't want to think about your parents and what happened there because, it's like I'm sexy, but I have tusks coming out of my mouth.
Hey, some people find tusks sexy.
Oh, do they now?
Well, that's what I hear.
Now, Assassin's Creed to me though looks very cool. I thought, and Terry and I had done a conversation about this recently, but I liked all the stuff in the past more than I did the Animus stuff. Like that to me looked a little bit more kind of conventional video game movie. I've seen the guy in the sort of very austere, almost antiseptic looking like steel room. Like I've seen that before. And the dialogue in that section, it's a good thing they have an Oscar winner delivering in Marion Cotillard. And we also have Jeremy Irons, another Oscar winner.
Right.
But those are the parts of the movie I'm not sold on that part. But whenever they went back to like Spain in the past, and they're doing their stuff with the blades and the parkour and the kicking and the jumping. That I liked. That I want to see more of. And I like that it had more grounded, kind of real world look to it. And I think that'll be what ultimately will be to the movie's benefit, because if it was just another kind of green screen thing, I think that movie we'd probably be having a very different conversation today.
Yeah, I mean, like I've never played the Assassin's Creed games, but I know, of course, the visuals and like the guy in the hood and the period piece look, and it looks cool, right? And you watch that trailer and it evokes that, and there's enough weirdness there with the sort of sci-fi setup that I think if the trailers this is the first trailer, if they can keep delivering on that, I think they can get people kind of hooked in.
I believe you said you had an anecdote you wanted to tell.
Oh yeah, we were talking and I was thinking about Assassin's Creed and just the fact that my first year working at IGN, Veronica Mars was still on the air. I loved Kristen Bell and I never interviewed her. And then I went to Vegas to cover, this is when IGN was covering a lot of random stuff, people. I was covering the Billboard Music Awards in Vegas, and Kristen Bell was...
We covered that back
Look, Kristen Bell was there just as like a presenter, and so she did like the sort of room where all the talent moves from table to table.
Right.
I interviewed some random people that day. Music stars, people I didn't know. Anyway, I was mostly excited about Kristen Bell, and I talked to her, and I knew she had Assassin's Creed, the first Assassin's Creed game was coming up, which she's in. And I knew enough to ask her about that, but I didn't know enough to realize that what she was telling me was like a giant scoop. So I ran my interview with her and just included like this, like what I thought was just her kind of being like, oh, it looks like it's gonna be a really cool game. And what turns out she was accidentally revealing to me was the entire thing that it's like a modern day and then he goes back in the past thing. Yeah. Because all the game footage had only been the period piece stuff.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And so she had told me that, and I just included it as like a little line in the interview. And then the next thing I knew, I just remember it was a few months into the job, and I just was so confused because suddenly IGN broke it out, has its own news story, and then everyone started picking it up, and it became this giant like story everywhere. And it just became this crazy thing. And then I remember I saw Kristen Bell a couple months later at a TCA party, and I went up to her, I go, I've got to ask you about something. and she's like, oh my God. She's like, look, I just wanted to promote the game. No one told me. I wasn't supposed to talk about it.
Now they have NDAs.
Of course, she had heard about after the fact, but she, she's a very savvy person. She would not knowingly have broken that reveal. But no one told her. It was a lesson for everyone involved. And so whenever I think Assassin's Creed, I think of my accidental giant video game scoop, which is not something Eric Goldman can usually talk about. Anyway.
Okay. Final kind of call. Do you think 2016, will this be the year that makes video game movies, or are we looking at more misses than hits here?
I don't know if it'll make it because I don't... don't think Warcraft's going to be a big hit. But I think if Assassin's Creed is a big question mark to me because I think Angry Birds will do well enough as like an animated movie. If Assassin's Creed is a solid hit, I think it'll get maybe studios being like, okay, let's give this another shot and like try to get like people like Fassbender involved and make these sort of bigger, high quality movies. And so it could be a stepping stone. If Warcraft is also a hit, but I'm wary again, then I think, who knows? Then that would ignite things.
The weird thing is, we probably had this exact same conversation like 5 years ago about Prince of Persia.
Probably.
You know? Hey, let's get an actor like Jake Gyllenhaal and an experienced director like Mike Newell. What could go wrong?
Yeah.
But, and that's not the worst of video game movies. It just it didn't move the needle one way or another. So we want to hear from you folks. What do you think? Is 2016 the year that will make or break video game movies? We have Assassin's Creed, Warcraft, Angry Birds. Let us know in the comments what you think and what you think so far of what you've seen of those movies. Let's move on from video game movies and talk about our other bread and butter, comic book movies. So there's no shortage of things to talk about. Let's start with Captain America Civil War. Did pretty good,
yes,
right?
It
did. It's at about worldwide $765.9 million as of Thursday. Mm-hmm. It opened at excuse me, about 181.8 million. Astounding,
Yeah.
Not as big or as good as Ultron, but ain't nobody sneezing about the fifth biggest domestic opening ever. So you've seen it how many times now?
I've seen it as we sit here 5 times.
I want to go again this week. I've only seen it the once. I was a little busy last week. I couldn't get to see it again, but now I want to see it this weekend.
Right.
But Civil War.
I read your review, Jim. You gave it a 7.8, which means that you thought it was the worst movie you've ever seen.
Exactly. I'm clearly biased.
Yeah.
In favor of that other movie I seem to love so much,
Right.
BVS. Now, the writers this week did talk about why Nick Fury wasn't in the movie. Which is basically, it would have just been one more kind of complicated layer of like him having to pick a side and all that. Were you kind of bummed that Nick Fury wasn't in there?
No. I mean, I think that movie is in some ways a miracle because it has 12 costumed superhero characters, and I think it does right by them all. They all have a moment. They all get like, they're, even though it's like, it's not like War Machine or Hawkeye's movie, they like get something, but the fact they pull that off is amazing. But at the same time, I can feel them going, okay, we can't also have Fury. We can't also like just have all these other characters. I think we've heard he's in Thor Ragnarok, or is that
which is weird?
Which is weird. Yeah.
All right, Nick Fury ends up in Thor 3, but he doesn't end up in Civil War.
Right.
The fight between the team that he put together.
Yeah, but it's weird because his status, of course, in these series is supposed to be that he's still like off the grid.
He's got a helicarrier.
He's got a helicarrier, but maybe it's a space helicarrier, Jim.
Who knows? Now you mentioned that we Hawkeye and War Machine won't be getting their own movies.
Yeah,
I think that's a pretty safe bet. You know who might though? According to Kevin Feige. He said that they are committing to doing, finally, a Black Widow solo movie.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is that high time for it, or is she better in small doses? What do you think?
I think it is high time for it. It's funny. So I rewatched my mini Marvel marathon, mini for 4 movies is funny to say, but I watched the both Avengers movies and the first 2 Cap movies before.
You didn't watch Iron Man 2 for screen debut?
Iron Man 2, no. So yeah, it is funny because not sort of thinking about that, we've watched all of her appearances except Iron Man 2. And watching it, one friend of mine was very vocal about the fact, was like, where is Black Widow movie? But we were all kind of agreeing watching it, especially watching how like Whedon sort of like really did so well by her after Iron Man 2 didn't in the first Avengers movie. That great intro scene tied to the chair, and then the scene with Loki, and then Winter Soldier builds upon that. And it is like, she would be awesome in her own movie, and it is kind of time for it. And I know that there's like cynicism about the fact that, they've been asked for 6 years now or however long, what about a Black Widow movie? And Feige's always said, oh, maybe. I will say it's worth noting that in this case, this came about when someone just asked a general question about all the characters who we haven't seen solo movies of, and he chose to like pick her as the one that like, oh well, that's the one that we're talking a lot about, which makes me think
doesn't hurt that she can open a movie to 100 million.
No, yeah. Lucy's performance. I mean, in a way, it is a little embarrassing for Marvel that they weren't doing a Black Widow movie, and then Lucy came out and was like, without even getting good reviews, was like a huge hit, on Scarlett Johansson's back, So I think at this point, because I saw some people on Twitter being like, oh, well, at this point it would just be meaningless or too little too late. I'm like, if it's a great movie, it's a great movie. I think the character is well liked. And yeah, like I see no reason why, it's funny if it takes this long, but I'm all for it.
Well, to be fair, Chris Hemsworth keeps getting Thor movies, and everything he's in that doesn't have Thor in it bombs.
Yeah. Yep.
Where Scarlett Johansson can open a movie. We'll see how Ghost in the Shell does next year.
Yeah.
That could be a movie. Maybe it does better overseas than it does at home. But look, Black Widow is also a compelling character, and I think it was the writers who were talking about sort of, I think they were referencing Whedon's work more, but taking a character who operated in the shadows and now bring her fully into the light. Like she can never be a secret agent again.
Yeah.
What kind of arc do you give her in a standalone movie? Do you go back in the past? Do you do like?
I think you might do some flashbacks, but I don't think it would be at this point a movie set in the past.
So we're not going to see her like throw away a promising dancing career?
No. I think it would definitely be, say they somehow fit it in. I mean, I don't think this is happening, but say they fit it in, in the next 2 years or something, it would be after the events of Civil War, Because I think, like you said, it would be about someone who is sort of trying to change who they are and also has been forced to change who they are. And, certainly you probably want to do some sort of like the past comes back to haunt her thing, because that's always compelling.
Yeah, her Winter Soldier.
Yeah, her Winter Soldier. I mean, it was funny because she had the encounter with Winter Soldier. They could definitely do that flashback, and there's other little things where they could sort of, fit in maybe some of the pieces of the puzzle. I think there's a very good chance Hawkeye could be in that movie,
I'm so sick of Hawkeye.
Are you sick of Hawkeye?
I'm sick of Hawkeye.
Why are you sick of Hawkeye?
What good is an archer when you're fighting aliens at this point? Seriously, it was already a stretch in the first one. Yeah, there's so many more compelling characters you could bring in. I don't know.
Because, I think you could make that argument about Black Widow. You could make that argument about Cap if you wanted. I mean, it's like on the power level, the movie Avengers have like three or four heavy hitters, and then everyone else is like skilled.
Yeah.
A skilled person,
He's just, I don't know. It's just, he's not moving the needle for me as a fan. But are there any particular villains you would like to see Black Widow go up against?
I can't think offhand.
MODOK?
MODOK. Well, MODOK should go up against everybody. The Serpent Society. I
remember when Feige joked about the Serpent Society reveal?
Oh, they did the fake title reveal. Yeah. I'd see that movie.
I don't put anything past Marvel at this point. They could probably pull off anything.
They could pull
so
off.
Okay, any
nothing's jumping out at me, but I do think it would probably be something that ties into, the movies have talked about, and we got the little snippets in Age of Ultron that she was a Russian spy. Yeah, I think you do something that's set in the present, but kind of works
Red Skull's daughter, Sen.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be fun.
Hey.
There you go, Marvel. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Well, we want to know, what are your ideas or reaction to the possibility, it's not confirmed, but pretty good chance Black Widow might get her own solo movie sooner than later. Let us know in the comments. Let's move on to other things Marvel related. Some news today I found very exciting. Lupita Nyong'o, Oscar winner for 12 Years a Slave. You might also know her as Maz Kanata, not that you could see her beautiful face in that movie, but also the voice of the mom wolf in Jungle Book. She is reportedly in talks to play the female lead and love interest of Black Panther. Now, there's some conflicting reports on this. Deadline kind of put a little cold water on this rumor.
They dialed it back a bit.
Yeah, just saying, look, they've talked to her, but it's not a done deal. She might not do it. I think she would be awesome for it. And frankly, I think she kind of needs to do this movie. Needs, Jim? She was in Star Wars.
Right.
look,
unrecognizable.
It's unrecognizable,
Yeah.
and she is not a household name yet. And this it
Like
would be a
Michael
good move.
Fassbender, who was in 12 Years a Slave with her?
Yes, and Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yes, there you go.
I'm just saying, it would be actually really cool career move for her to do this. We don't know what the character would be, except that she's a, quote, love interest for Black Panther, but some of the speculation is that she could be part of Black Panther's, the Wakandan king has a female bodyguard.
Which they even show
agency,
in Civil War.
You get that one quick clip of the bald lady getting kind of like...
in Black Widow's face.
Yeah, so I think that would be interesting if she was sort of like his bodyguard, but like you could just do the bodyguard plot, like, she carries him out and sings.
I think that is something like that is very likely because, I understand anyone who's like wary of someone as, talented as her being like the love interest. And I think Marvel would and Ryan Coogler would know better than that. Like they wouldn't, she's not going to just be like, T'Challa, don't die.
I'm trapped, come get me.
I don't think it will be that. I think it will be when I say a strong character, I mean a strongly written character, but I also think there's a good chance she will be someone physically who can handle herself.
Can you imagine if they did have some sort of out to use Storm, like the way that Fox, Fox owns the character Storm because she's an X-Man, but Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch technically can kind of pop up back and forth. What if there was some little wiggle room there and you got Lupita as Storm?
It would be crazy. I mean, it'd be amazing. I don't think it's true. I just think, the Storm is so strongly. There was someone I was just thinking about. I wish I could think of the character who's going to kill me, who I was wondering if they had the same loophole for because they'd been so strongly associated with X-Men. Firestar. That was I was just wondering about Firestar because introduced in the X-Men books, a mutant, but then was a member of New Warriors and Avengers for years.
Wasn't she introduced technically on a Spider-Man cartoon?
Yeah. But as far as
is there any sort of wiggle room there?
I don't know. That's a whole other question.
I'd love to be like a fly on the wall of like Marvel
these legal
and
questions,
be like, well, I don't. Yeah, because think about it, they have to go over all these old comics. They have to go over everything, and I'm sure it's almost like, well, how many lines did he get in that book? Does that qualify as an actual?
While we're on this tangent, I will also mention that I am very curious if Marvel could use adamantium and chooses not to because it's been because in the comics, adamantium, it's Wolverine's claws, but it's also what Ultron's made out of. Yeah. Cap's shield in the comics is part vibranium, part adamantium. That's what makes it the most powerful thing ever. Yeah. And I wonder if Marvel could use adamantium and just chose not to because at that point the X-Men movies had so established that, as a thing.
I'm curious to see if the X-Men movies, what they ultimately do with some of, let's say, like there are more cosmic characters now that the MCU, and I've seen X-Men Apocalypse. Eric hasn't, you guys haven't, so I'm not going to spill any spoilers.
You saw it. That guy saw it.
That guy right there. You know who you are.
Right.
But like, could they ultimately go like the sort of the cosmic route and put them into space and have like Cyclops' dad Corsair and the Starjammer show up? I think that would be interesting if they actually went that route. I have a theory about Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Kurt Russell, like who just wrapped shooting on Guardians 2, by the way, if he really is Star-Lord's dad,
which seems extremely likely.
Yeah, I mean,
you don't cast.
They kind of look alike.
Yeah, and then they have the same swagger and the same witty charm. Like it makes sense to cast him as his dad.
But what if he's actually Corsair and they make Corsair Star-Lord's dad? Because think about it, like Corsair would seem actually like he's a space pirate. Right. He would actually be great as like Star-Lord's dad.
It would be amazing, and if the rights weren't an issue, but I think that one.
But is there a way to get around? Because Corsair did have some storylines in Avengers.
Yeah, but I think he's, again, and I'm saying things I don't know the answer to, but I do think like he's so firmly more an X-Men, because in Marvel everyone's met everyone, but if you think about like over their lifespan, like it makes an odd sense that Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were a weird exception because they really were important to both.
But which book did they debut in Avengers?
No, they debuted in X-Men. They were members of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
I do wonder how that.
I believe in issue 4.
Oh, geez.
Of Uncanny X-Men.
I do wonder though, how did that work out rights-wise?
Yeah.
Because it can't just be what book you debuted in.
No, because then Punisher would be a Spider-Man character, Wolverine would be a Hulk character.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely not just that.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, if any of you are lawyers for Marvel, do drop us a line at keepinitreal at IGN.com.
There must be fascinating meetings constantly. I mean, Marvel themselves must have to stop and go, wait, do we have that character?
Yeah, who did we whore out that character to in the 90s?
No, I'm sure.
Is now biting us in the ass.
Especially those ones that are X-Men adjacent, and who do they belong to?
That's like being Beverly Hills adjacent here in LA, where it just puts up your property value that little bit more.
And don't forget, we've already had like a case like Big Hero 6, which the original comic book was called Sunfire in Big Hero 6, but Sunfire is an X-Men character, so hence not part of that movie or the title.
Well, let's talk about some other X-Men related things now. New Mutants is chugging along.
I'm really excited for this.
Simon Kinberg. Now, if you guys don't know what New Mutants is, it's an X-Men spinoff, and it was a comic in the 80s and 90s, and it's still around, or no?
I don't know if right now, and I can't speak to it because I'm not up on my monthly comics. So at this very moment, I don't know if there's a comic called New Mutants out, but they've done several revivals. But people should remember, New Mutants was the first true X-Men spinoff book. You know, through the 80s, it was pretty much, there was only 2 books, Uncanny X-Men and the New Mutants until X-Factor. That was the third one. But for a long time, it was like those 2 books.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of it was that they were the kid mutants.
Yeah.
And this was essentially like their first class.
Well, especially because what happened in the X-Men comics was once they got the new X-Men in the mid-70s, which was like Colossus, Nightcrawler, Storm, Wolverine, all of them were brought in as like adult, for the most part. I think Colossus was kind of younger, but most of them were brought in as adult characters, and it no longer made sense for them to be in class and training. You lost that from the comics, and so I think the whole idea with New Mutants was like to bring that back into...
Remind you you're at school.
You remind you at the school, because both books took place at the school. They would the New Mutants would hang out with Kitty because she was the one like young teen member of the X-Men.
Well, Rogue was always kind of like, wasn't she was supposed to be like, what, 18
Yeah, but they didn't really acknowledge, because Rogue's backstory in the comics was she was, again, a member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. A lot of people started out as members of the Brotherhood. So hers was more about like the redemption arc than her being like young.
Well, they seem like they've kind of taken that arc from Rogue and given it to Mystique in the movies.
Yeah, which is funny because Rogue is Mystique's adopted daughter in the comic books.
And she's also Nightcrawler's mom too, right?
Mystique, yeah. Another tangent time is talk about the fact that I just rebought one of my favorite posters from my youth. I had a poster that was, it said it all in the poster. It said X-Men, had the logo X-Men Women. And for like young junior high me, this was like kind of a dare I say titillating poster, because it was the X-Men women lounging by the pool.
I remember that.
And it's Kitty, Rogue, and Storm. But there was a couple things that struck me as very funny when I got this poster now, which was the cheesecake factor of it is kind of silly, although it's not like gratuitous. But the other thing that I was like, oh my God, that I actually I literally slapped my forehead, but metaphorically slapped my forehead about, was that Rogue has a Confederate flag towel on this poster. It was early 80s, mid 80s. We didn't know better.
I mean, look, we had just had Dukes of Hazzard. It was a different time. People,
it was a
judge.
different time, but it was so funny when I got that poster. I was like, oh, forgot about that part.
Adolescent mind didn't go to the Confederate flag.
Didn't recognize that.
Well, Simon Kinberg, the producer and writer, or one of the writers on New Mutants.
I don't know.
No, he's not one of the writers. No, Josh Boone.
But he's producing all the X-Men movies. Yeah.
He said that New Mutants could start filming as early as early 2017. And the lineup, according to an Instagram posting that we could infer from director Josh Boone, the lineup could include Wolfsbane, Magic, Mirage, Cannonball, Warlock, and what's this last one, Jim?
Was it
Sunspot?
Yeah. Which is well, two things we should say about that lineup. One, it's very classic New Mutants lineup. Not quite the original lineup, no Karma, but Warlock joined later, and and so did Magic, and those are like kind of the heyday of New Mutants, or those characters. There's a couple others, Magma and whatnot. But the other thing is that sounds more and more, like Drew McWeeny, who we know at HitFix, who had that report.
Our new neighbors HitFix.
Our
They
new
literally
neighbors,
moved in right next door.
Right next door. We could go over and grab Drew and bring him over here. Yeah, his report, which was he had those early casting reports in this movie. I mean, it's sounding spot on. I mean, look, deals are deals, and who knows if these deals will be finalized. But Maisie Williams pretty much owned up to being in talks.
Yeah,
to play Wolfsbane.
Yeah.
And
then Alexandra Shipp Storm is allegedly going to be in there.
And he also, Drew said that Professor X is in the movie, which then Kimberg
also.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like, and also this week we heard that the sequel to, if there's a sequel to X-Men Apocalypse, it's going to be set in the 90s. Well, couldn't that just be the New Mutants then?
Right.
I mean, do you just call it X-Men : the New Mutants? Because I feel like at least when we run New Mutant stuff on the site, it doesn't really pop as well as anything with X-Men in there.
Well, title-wise, I have seen some reports that maybe it will be called that, but I don't know. I don't think it would be considered. I still think they're considering New Mutants its own thing, and that there will be a sequel to Apocalypse that is still sort of about the core X-Men. But branding-wise, it wouldn't shock me to see the word X-Men in that title.
Do you take a Star Wars thing and just say New Mutants and X-Men story, like Rogue One, a Star Wars story?
Oh, maybe. I think
I'm just full of ideas for you guys today.
If the New Mutants are like the classic comic books, also, even though the comic was just called the New Mutants, they wore kind of new versions of the classic X-Men training outfit, the blue and yellow outfit, which Negasonic in Deadpool was wearing completely almost like that.
I'm surprised that she wouldn't be in this one. I mean, unless they do the 90s thing.
Again, it's the timeline question, the weirdness of Apocalypse being set in the 80s, and how much it's just this weirdness of the out-of-time nature of those movies.
Well, we do have a review up right now on the site of X-Men Apocalypse. IGN UK reviewed it for us. I've seen it. All I'll say is, I liked it. It kind of went in one ear and out the other. It's not the best comic book movie of the year, but it's not as horrible as some of the reviews have made it out to be. That being said, I was kind of hoping they would have more fun with the 80s stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen the movie, and I, purposely I'm not trying to find out everything about the movie, but I will just say, marketing-wise, everything, I've been a little on this, and I loved First Class and Days of Future Past.
Yeah, me too.
And so I really was hoping this would just be another great X-Men movie, but everything I'm seeing from it is just kind of all right.
Ultimately, I just felt like I'd seen this movie 10 years ago kind of thing. But still, check it out. Let us know what you guys think. It opens next Friday, the 20th, and I guess if it's the 20th in the UK or AU, weird, stupid time changes.
Other countries.
And then 27th here in the States. Yeah. But we have our advanced review. We also learned this week Wolverine 3 is going to be rated R. So, Deadpool effect right there.
Yep. Blood on the claws.
I also want to give out a shout out though to.
It's very Beavis and Butthead what I just did.
Yeah, it was actually. Which one does that make me then?
We'll let the readers, the listeners decide.
I want to give a shout out to a tweet that Nicholas Holt sent out today. It was so good. I got to say, in some ways, I liked it better than the entire movie. But it shows him as full Beast makeup. What was the song again?
I forget the name of the song too.
Something he's going to Beast mode or whatever.
The reason he chose it was because there's
and
that
then they
lyric.
all start dancing behind him, and it's from some footage, still photos you've seen of them in their full costumes.
Yeah, and it's pretty much
awesome.
Most of the cast. Yeah.
Yeah, you see Jennifer Lawrence and
Sophie
and
Turner.
McAvoy, Sophie Turner, all just getting down behind him.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
Yeah, where's the minute-long version? But you know what? It's hysterical in the 8 seconds or so we have.
Now, all right, so.
By the way, I saw Grant Gustin retweeted that, and I like the superhero solidarity.
Exactly, right? You're close ranks, young superheroes standing together.
It'll never be this good for us.
Exactly.
It's awesome.
Hey, they have a movie. Imagine that. Speaking of which, did we? I'm already drawing a blank. Did we talk at all much about DC movie stuff yet?
DC? No, we did not.
Well, guess what? We're going to talk about, folks. So, Justice League Part 1 now filming in London. Ben Affleck, we learned last week, is now going to be an executive producer on Justice League. And that's kind of a token title you throw people.
Yeah.
But the not so read in between the lines messaging of it is, we trust Ben's tastes. He is, many people would argue, a finer director than he is an actor, although I loved him as Batman, best thing in BVS, that he's going to have a bit more creative control over Justice League, which is like, you know, it's supposed to be Zack Snyder's show. It's like you just get promoted over your, quote, boss.
Yeah, and it's already filming. I mean, look, we keep saying it because we can't help but think about it, how much we'd love to be the fly on the wall at Warner Brothers right now, because it's, no matter what you think, it's got to be a fascinating time, because...
or a completely frightening time
well,
if you work there.
Yeah, just the reception of Batman vs. Superman and the fact that Justice League was too late to really change things. I mean, the movie was scheduled to start filming like 2 weeks after BVS opened. So, but then because the reception was so negative on BVS, it's just, I don't know, like we're seeing so much happening right now, and I'm sure there are a lot of other conversations and shifts we're not even aware of.
Yeah.
So yeah, stuff like Affleck getting this like better sort of title, and maybe, you know, it's hard not, look, I'll say some of the sort of more, some of the perception things you have to wonder is it even about getting his name out there more, because Snyder is now a tainted brand with DC, you know? He's 0 for 2 for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so how much do you want to sell Justice League? You know, I was joking before, but you can't have the trailer for Justice League say from the director of Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman, right? You know?
I guess so.
So just try to push that Affleck's producing and, you know, that he's kind of a driving force behind this.
Well, I mean, there was a rumor today from Birth Movies Death that the movie is going to be shot a lot on green screen, kind of a la 300, so there'll be a lot of just digital backgrounds. Now, BVS had a lot of that too. I was watching, I was just thumbing through a book on it and some of the magazines that are out there about it, and so much of the movie was green screen.
Yeah.
You know, just the entire Doomsday battle, obviously, but even things that you wouldn't normally think would be green screen, like something as simple as just through a window, you know? Like,
Right.
But, you know, so it does seem like it's going to have that Snyder aesthetic still.
Yeah.
And that seems to be kind of a turnoff for a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean...
it's simply too late to...
Yeah, it's too late, you know, and I think the aesthetic is maybe one of the least of their problems. Like, you know, Batman vs. Superman, as someone who had serious issues with Batman vs. Superman, at the end of the day, while I might throw in if I'm just bitching and moaning, like, and visually I didn't like, it's not top of my list, you know?
Yeah,
it's like if I thought the movie was really well written and, you know, engaging, it wouldn't have mattered to me that it has sort of that darker visual tone to it, you know?
Another Justice League rumor is that Steppenwolf is actually the villain of Part 1. Darkseid will be sort of like their Thanos, who kind of shows up near the end, more of a presence.
Yeah.
Now, Steppenwolf, we believe we saw it in that deleted scene that was released like the Monday after BVS opened,
so weird.
Of Lex Luthor in the Kryptonian mothership thing and that creature thing. And Steppenwolf, I mean, he's a New Gods character, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't know much about him. I mean,
yeah, no, most people don't. I mean, you know, I keep thinking, you know, he's just going to have that Magic Carpet Ride song playing.
That's all I can think of too.
With a theater in Chicago that so many great actors.
That's the other reference I was thinking of making too. Was Gary Sinise involved in Steppenwolf?
Gary Sinise and John
Malkovich,
Malkovich and Michael Madsen. Pretty much, if you're a cool actor from Chicago, you know, you can thank Steppenwolf.
Keeping it real is dropping some theater knowledge on you.
That's what this guy does.
Yeah.
Windy City. I don't know what I'm doing.
I was born in Chicago. My mom was part of the Chicago theater scene, so I hear a lot of things. Yeah. She has a lot of stories about Montana and Bill Macy.
Is she playing Steppenwolf?
She's not playing Steppenwolf,
No.
sadly. She's one of the finalists.
Did she ever meet Mamet?
Oh, yeah, she worked with Mamet. Ton.
What? Why am I only finding this now on air? All right, I'm going to have to pick your brain about all this afterwards. All right, so Steppenwolf, though, is he sounds like he could kind of be like, I don't know, I'm getting the vibe of more of like a Ronan the Accuser, kind of like, I'm just the guy before the guy you're really waiting for. Like,
Yeah,
I'll do the job, but you're not going to remember me come tomorrow.
Again, and here's where some people get mad because I'm, you know, going to kind of say negative things about DC movie versus positive things about a Marvel movie. But the first Avengers movie had the benefit of Loki had an entire movie that established him beforehand.
Yeah.
So Avengers had to put together these 6 characters, but we already knew Loki were invested in him. So I do wonder if Justice League, because they don't have that benefit, we've, you know, really, we had these 20 cameos, but we really met 3 of them, and Wonder Woman, she didn't have a ton to do in Batman vs Superman. So they still have a lot of heavy lifting.
Well, her
to do.
movie will come out before that.
It will. That's
true. It
true.
actually wrapped filming.
That's
week,
true.
So.
But they still have a lot of heavy lifting as far as the team building is concerned, and Superman's status. That's all I'll say about that. So maybe,
all right, come on. Can we? Is that really?
If you give me permission, I'm going for it.
I don't think that's a spoiler.
I don't think
anymore.
it is either.
But internally, there's debate.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
But so Superman's status needs to be dealt with. But so maybe they don't want to have their big gun villain in this movie. Maybe it does. They do want just more of a something needs to cause them to come together, but it's really going to be the team.
Well, Birth Movies Death also had a rumor about Willem Dafoe is going to be in the movie, and we knew that he was a good guy, according to reports, and now they're claiming he's going to be...
Shocking in and of itself.
I know, right? Willem Dafoe has played so many villains, but that he's going to play an Atlantean of some kind.
Yeah.
Which I find, it's kind of strange. I don't know why I find that strange. I just do. But they also had a report of possibly, because there was... some blowback over the look of Aquaman in the actual movie, which is he looked like a dude holding his breath underwater.
Yeah.
Several people I know, the old '70s Man from Atlantis.
Several people I know mentioned that, and the guy was not on screen very long, and so for several people I know to independently mention he looked like he was holding his breath. It was probably I was like, didn't you have a different take? Didn't you have
Yeah, didn't you look at that and be like, especially since he was in so much of the merchandising too. You look at some of those, the toys and stuff they put out. You would think Aquaman was in the whole movie. Or that Lex Luthor
I thought he was
gonna battle.
I thought he was gonna play into the finale in some way that he did not. So.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Fish out of water.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that they have heard at Birth Moves Death was that the way they're going to film Aquaman now for the underwater scenes in Justice League, and I would imagine for his own movie too, is basically green screen on kind of like a harness and a like a camera arm kind of thing. So it looks like and then they'll digitally make his hair look all floaty and stuff, which just makes more sense that you would want to do it that way. That's how they did, oddly enough, that's how they did it for Hail Caesar for Scarlett Johansson's mermaid musical sequences where she's underwater singing and all this kind of, or not singing, but doing a musical dance number. And it's like, why would you want to just have your guy just underwater holding his breath the entire time? It would just, it's 2016 and you spent $250 million. Why did you wait till that point and be like, hey, you know what? Let's just leave that part in.
Look, I have a lot of questions about that movie.
That's not one of them?
No, it is one of them. It's just a long list.
You know what else we heard this week about DC movies? The Booster Gold movie has a writer. It's this guy, Zach Stentz, who wrote Thor, X-Men First Class, and he's doing the Power Rangers movie.
Yeah, all those with his writing partner in the past.
Yeah. Was it Ashley Miller, right?
Yes.
I think I follow those guys on Twitter. One of them might even follow me back. I don't know. I got to double check. But, we're hearing too now that it won't be a Booster Gold Blue Beetle team-up movie anymore. You kind of bummed by that? I kind of have a foil. Or are we looking at DC like they're doing possibly with Lobo? Kind of, is this the Deadpool factor coming in? Let's get a snarky sort of, not fourth wall breaking, but more meta kind of character.
I think even though they're a great duo in the comics, and I would love one day to see them on screen together, I think Booster Gold certainly can hold his own movie. I mean, and he's got such a big sort of hook, the time travel hook alone, and sort of the celebrity angle.
Yeah.
You could do a lot with him on his own before you even bring Blue Beetle into the mix.
Right.
So I don't think he needs to be a team-up movie to introduce him.
Green Lantern Corps movie, the release date has been pushed back a little bit from June of 2020 to July 24th, 2020. So I guess we'll be seeing stuff of that at Comic-Con 2020. It's still just rumors about George Miller, Mad Max Fury Road director George Miller, possibly directing Green Lantern
Babe
Corps.
2 Pig in the City director?
That's true. Him as well. And Happy Feet 1 and 2. Oscar winner for Happy Feet. So when everybody, back when Mad Max was up for all these Oscars and everything, like, we want George Miller to win win an Oscar. It's like, he's got one. He got one for Happy Feet. So.
But seriously, Babe 2 Pig in the City is an awesome movie. It is.
That's all he wants to say about that. What do you think, though? Will Miller actually do Green Lantern Corps? I don't see him actually saying yes to that.
Who knows? Like he came so close to doing Justice League. Fury Road, which was a huge gamble of a movie, one I'll readily admit to being super pessimistic about, and after all the years of production, all that paid off.
Yeah.
So certainly Warner Brothers right now, I feel like he'd be someone that would at least talk to about one of these DC movies. You know,
he handles mythology well. He's actors like him. He is a guy who works at a more deliberate pace.
That's the problem.
You can't have that. Even with a movie that's scheduled to open in 2020, like that gives him at least 2 years to delay things.
Yeah, and he's like, somewhat of an auteur, and I mean, like Marvel's had this too, as far as like I think the Marvel movies like certainly are just I think like James Gunn and people are bringing their own vibe to it, but at the same time, it is a machine. They do have to move at a certain pace, and there's sometimes it's not going to work for certain filmmakers.
Right. We should also address that, it looks like there were rumblings that James Wan had trepidation about Aquaman, but, he's since taken to social media and just in his own, just using visuals, kind of pissed on that. Said, no, that's
it was he was pissing on the story.
It really was.
Literally.
He was just,
I don't know, he ruined it.
Here's how we're doing the water effects in Aquaman.
Release the golden shower.
Oh, God. Aquaman, Curse of the Golden Shower. So other Warner Brothers.
My two greatest enemies, Black Manta and Golden Shower. They've returned.
We now know who Willem Dafoe is playing in Aquaman. Warner Brothers' other stuff, Godzilla 2, now coming out March 22nd, 2019, and Godzilla vs. Kong, May 29th, 2020.
My favorite line I read about Godzilla 2, it was just and look, I'm a franchise guy. I love me some sequels, but sometimes you read things and you're like, this is a weird world, because it was like, Godzilla 2 is moving away from Transformers 6. The thing I read that was like a true statement, First of all, mostly because I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, Transformers 6. Because we really are like that far along. I mean, like we haven't seen the fifth one, but they're already planning way beyond. Godzilla 2, I mean, it's so weird because Godzilla was, sort of met with it was kind of a Man of Steel sort of deal where people hated it, but it was not what they wanted.
It didn't live up to the hype.
It didn't live up to the hype, and so in a way, I'm surprised we're still going to get the sequel, especially because it's years away, which that can also be like kind of a, you can dampen any enthusiasm at that point.
Do you think Gareth Edwards is really going to stay on board that? I mean, or are we going to look at another Pacific Rim 2 thing where Guillermo's talking up for years, and then at the end of the day, another guy comes in and does it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in his court. I mean, I think like the fact that they are waiting seems to be that they wanted him to. Like, it's almost like a, okay, do your Star Wars movie first. So yeah,
there's going to be a Star Wars celebration in Europe with Kathleen Kennedy for Rogue One, and they're going to have some of the cast there, I assume. So.
Yeah. But I was shocked that Guillermo did leave Pacific Rim 2 when the fact that Pacific Rim 2, if it was going to happen at all, the fact that it would be without him kind of shocked me.
This makes me less interested in wanting to see that.
Yeah.
I wasn't even that interested in seeing it to begin with. Now, other things that I don't know yet if I'm interested in seeing, that Mummy reboot.
That Mummy reboot, I hope that's the title.
Mummy reboot, that darn Mummy reboot. They have Tom Cruise is playing a Navy SEAL, because that's what Tom Cruise does. And then Russell Crowe has acknowledged that he's going to play Dr. Henry Jekyll, turns into Mr. Hyde.
Don't forget, this is the launch of Universal's like shared universe of horror characters.
Which, in a weird way, they actually relaunching, because for years it was just kind of a given that these guys all popped up. You had Frankenstein and
if you go back to the 30s and 40s, they were kind of doing this before Marvel.
It's just that the Universal monsters were the original shared universe.
There we go.
There's a headline.
There's a headline.
And they want you to remember that too. But think about it. Now you're going to have Russell Crowe's Dr. Jekyll. Tom Cruise is
Johnny Navy Seal.
And then
Hunt.
Exactly. What if they make Abraham Van Helsing now as like a Navy SEAL?
Yeah, there you go.
And then Johnny
well, he won't
Depp
be Abraham.
possibly.
It'll be his like great grandson.
Jack Van Helsing.
There you go.
And then Johnny Depp is the Invisible Man. And these are contemporary, horror movies, and they are, according to Russell Crowe, they're going for the horror. But yeah, we're going to see like essentially an Avengers of Universal monsters at something down the line.
If they really go for the horror, that's exciting to me because, and by the way, I will actually stand by like the 1999 Mummy movie as a perfectly enjoyable movie. And at the time, taking the Mummy and being like, let's turn into this Indiana Jones type adventure felt kind of fresh.
It was the sequels that,
But
what do you think of the Wolfman with Benicio?
I actually haven't seen the Wolfman, and I'm really curious. Joe Johnston directed that.
Yeah, so. It's like that movie is just you can just feel the factory and the sort of bureaucracy behind it.
Like a lot of reshoots and stuff.
But Benicio's trying what he can, and Emily Blunt and Hopkins. So it's not awful, but it's just sort of like, but that technically that and I want to say Dracula Untold are part of this shared universe, but I don't think those will be coming back in. Those are going to be, if anything, Incredible Hulked into like a,
exactly. I think that's even being generous because Incredible Hulk is still canon as far as like the events of it. But yeah, if I'd be very happy. First of all, I'm a big horror movie fan, but also I think it would help to sort of set it apart when everyone is doing a shared universe. If Universal's was at least legitimately like horror movies,
What do you think about Universal is also redoing Interview with a Vampire with Josh Boone, the New Mutants director, and Fault in Our Stars, Josh Boone. I mean, they've been talking for a while about doing like basically the what is it, the Lestat Chronicles, the Vampire Chronicles?
I think a lot of people. A lot of people feel like it's due for a proper adaptation, right? It's like we got that movie, which was well received, Interview with the Vampire, but then nothing until Queen of the Damned, which had no actual, none of the same people involved.
Well, they've had a couple of different people now play Lestat between Tom Cruise, Simon Townsend, and wasn't there a third one too?
I don't remember. Maybe though.
I don't know. I kind of wouldn't mind seeing Fassbender play him.
Yeah.
And I know like they put Fassbender in everything.
But he's got like 3 franchises right now. So.
Well, we'll see.
3 potential franchises.
Finally, let's talk a little bit about Star Wars. Now, there's a rumor, so I guess I'll put spoiler ahead of it, but it's a rumor, so it could be bull. And even if it's true, it's not going to ruin your appreciation of the movie. But a rumor from, I believe it's called Making Star Wars, this rumor site, that Tom Hardy could cameo as a First Order Stormtrooper in Star Wars Episode 8. That'd be kind of cool. I don't know.
It's just, I feel like, I don't know. Stuff like this, to me, is kind of like a little bit ruining the magic in that Star Wars is Star Wars, and everyone wants to be in Star Wars. And even when you go to the prequels and stuff, they had stuff like that. And so now we know about Force Awakens had all these people, like notable people, and some of that's still unconfirmed. Like there was reports that Tom Cruise was in a Stormtrooper outfit in Force Awakens somewhere,
well, and also in Episode 8, they're going to have Prince William and Harry. They're going to be in there as Stormtroopers.
So it's weird to like hear like, oh, Tom Hardy's cameoing because it's like we're never going to see him on screen. Probably it's just
he could be like Daniel Craig.
He was visiting the set.
They still deny the Daniel Craig thing, but that's him. That's his voice.
Oh yeah, I think it is him. They're just kind of playing along at this point with a joke that we're not playing. It's like
box.
It's like I'm sure there are going to be several famous Stormtroopers again in this movie.
I just I feel like it's turning into the old '60s Batman show where they would like be climbing up the wall and then Sammy Davis sticks his head out.
But I guess that speaks to like even Simon Pegg saying why he didn't want to be recognizable because he knew it would be like that moment of like hey, it's Simon Pegg, which there's truth to that. Like if Daniel Craig walked up with as like a First Order officer, it would be like, oh man, it's Daniel.
He would have made a good First Order officer.
Yeah, he would.
All right, our final Star Wars thing to talk about is no small thing. Star Wars spin-off prequel Han Solo movie from Lord and Miller, the directors of Lego Movie and 21 Jump Street and 22 Jump Street, right? No, did they do 20? Yeah, they did. Is reportedly found it's Han Solo. It's new Han Solo and Alden Ehrenreich. Joshua and I did a conversation last week on who the heck is Alden Ehrenreich.
Yeah.
Eric, what do you think about Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo?
I think I look forward to seeing his performance because I've never seen him in a movie. I mean, I haven't seen Hail Caesar, which I was actually really bummed. I love the Coen Brothers. I just didn't get to that movie. It's actually,
I think it's out on Blu-ray now.
Well, it's actually playing at the Cheapie in North Hollywood. If it's still playing when I get back from New York, I'm going to see it, but it probably won't be. The biggest thing here is, like, I guess I was kind of arguing on Twitter about this because there are people that are just so pissed that this movie even exists, that are like, you know, why are we doing a Han Solo movie at all? And I get it. But to me, I'm like, guys, it's from the guy who co-wrote Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and Force Awakens. It's from the directors of Jump Street and Lego Movie, who take ideas that sound bad and make them great.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, I think this will be a good movie, you know? And I bet they cast a talented guy to play Han Solo.
Do you think, we should say that StarWars.com and Lucasfilm have not officially announced all in their own rights, but
it's so, like, every trade is reporting it, so I think
they're just kind of crossing the T's and dotting the I's at this point. Do you think, a la Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, will we find out how Han Solo gets the scar in his chin, or are they just going to forget that?
I don't think they'll do that. I think that mostly because Last Crusade did that, you know.
Damn it.
And I just think Lord and Miller, I mean, I really love them, and I think that they're going to take, like, if they did it, they'd almost do like a winky version of it.
I need to disguise myself.
It's a very disturbing movie.
I'd say it's actually the cute moment between him and Chewie. He accidentally claws them. And yeah, I mean, I guess we're going to see, you know, we've heard Chewbacca is obviously going to be in there. Do we think, I have this, maybe I'm just trying to ship these characters, but do we think young Han Solo and Jyn Erso from the Felicity Jones character from Rogue One, do you think they might be an item? Do you think she might show up?
I don't, unless the Han Solo movie distinctly takes place before Rogue One, you know? Because then we do get into the weirdness of, like, when is this Han Solo movie set, and is he supposed to be, you know, because there was even rumors like maybe he'll pop up in Rogue One.
Yeah.
But that's weird because Rogue One takes place right before Star Wars, right before it. So
yeah, and he's about 12 years younger than Harrison Ford was.
So to me, that doesn't, like, I don't think so. Like, I don't think that they'd, and I don't know if they'd link. I'm getting the feeling Pablo Hidalgo on Twitter has been very adamant that, like,
explain to folks who that is.
So Pablo Hidalgo has been at Lucasfilm for a long time, and he is one of the guys on the story group, you know, like, who kind of oversee everything and do all connections, and he knows, he's super knowledgeable about Star Wars, and he's been very adamant that standalone means standalone. Now, of course, that's not 100% because we're getting the Death Star plans, but even he completely squashed any theory that Snoke is involved in Rogue One. He's like, no, this is like a standalone story.
And shot down that he's Darth Plagueis.
Yeah, yeah. So I just don't think they're going to be, not to say that there won't be any characters that could pop up in the standalone movies. You know,
they're not going to Marvel the Star Wars movies.
I don't think they're trying to make it that. Yeah, I don't think they're trying to, because they are supposed to take place at different times and whatnot.
Right.
And they've even had to be like, look, guys, they're not all going to be prequels. We know it seems that way because of these two movies, but like that's just how it worked out, and they're not all going to be that. So.
All right. Well, we want to hear what you guys think about Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo. Let us know in the comments. Shoot us your thoughts at keepitreal@ign.com. And you can find us
about Chicago theater.
About Chicago theater. Just what are you seeing this weekend at Chicago theaters? Right. Stage, not movies. You can find us on IGN's video content on a number of platforms now. Xbox One, I believe, and PS4, Roku, mobile, everything. Maybe everywhere. Maybe even on a stone tablet. I don't know. Possibly. But follow us on Twitter at the Eric Goldman, at Jim Vavida. And for all things movies, keep it here on IGN.